Hello guys, welcome back. It's Illogical as always, and today I'm joined by the Spud. The Spud is one of my friends, and he is considered a lore junkie, so whenever anything lore related comes up, this is the man I talk to.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Hope you are doing well.
Agreed. No, I had explained to Spud that I have discovered the timeline for the events of Elden Ring in some way, shape, or form, we would say.
Well, yeah. So I remember you saying to me once, I remember you messaging me rather excitedly, saying that you believe you had cracked the code of the timeline. Which, honestly, as we get into the timeline of Elden Ring. Naturally enough, I will have some little side points to make because obviously, as time has gone on, I've been thinking about different aspects of the lore myself. Maybe not necessarily sometimes in regards to the timeline, other times in regards to other aspects of the lore of Elden Ring.
Well, the
And yeah,
Right. Sorry for interrupting you. No, because the way that
go ahead.
I want to format this podcast is I'm going to talk about the timeline as a whole. So
Hmm.
this is events as a whole. Because
so,
did you
so,
watch Vadi Video's recent video?
is that the one regarding Millicent?
Yes.
I have not seen it as of yet. I have not seen it.
Right. Well, I've discovered a neat. Now again, it. I've discovered a few things, but I'll bring that
Also,
up
shout out to Vadi Vidya. Love your content. Just
always.
saying, just saying. Love your
Not
content,
just
Vadi. Keep it
him.
up.
There's also, in terms of lore, that you also have the Square Table and
Smowtown. We can't
Smowtown.
forget about. We can't forget about
You
Smowtown.
can't forget about Smowtown. All of them
And I
basically.
think that also Paragon DS. I think.
Yep.
Although I haven't seen anything by him in a while, though I did watch him a while ago, and I should watch some more of his videos again. But I liked some of the theories. I remember he had an Aldrich of the Deep theory
Yep.
that I liked.
Yep.
So
That's all the shout outs out of the way. But
yeah.
no. So whenever it comes to the timeline of as I'd already explained, now as it says, Spud's here to challenge what my theory is and see if we can come to a reasonable conclusion. Does that sound fair?
If you want me to be the challenger of your points, I will certainly do my best.
I need you. All right. Long story short, I need you to play devil's advocate today.
You need me to be your debate opponent today.
Yes.
Your
If
devil's advocate, you need me to be the naysayer.
yes.
But what if?
Right. So as I had explained, right. So me and Spud had already had this conversation. Unfortunately, that podcast was corrupted.
Rip.
Agreed. And basically, the context was the fact that I had somehow, well, not somehow, but sort of mentally worked out in the middle of work, might I add, how the timeline proceeds. Now, we already know that Marika is a shaman,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which was born
That is indisputable.
right, that was born in the shaman village, which
Yes.
was technically governed by the Horn Scent.
Yes, because the horn scent, as we had established, because and again, I'm sort of going to put in here. So, obviously, my long-standing thing is that just to provide some context, my long-standing thoughts on the land of shadow is that we're talking way back before Marika ever became a god. The land of shadow was geographically a part of the lands between. It was connected. It was part of the lands between. And the reason that it seems now disconnected is because of the shadow tree, which is, I believe, is the conduit of a, shall we say, a veiling spell that hides the land of shadow because of course Marika wanted to hide what had happened there to begin with. So in that instance, yes, what you're saying is correct. It was governed by the horn scent, but I am also stipulating that the horn scent not only governed over the sort of geographical area that makes up the land of shadow, but And I think you would agree with me on this. The Hornsent governed all of the lands between, or what they could have at the very least.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. Simply due
Well,
to
that's my speculation. That's my speculation
yes.
anyway.
Well, see, the reason why I'm going to challenge that is because in terms of lore that we have the Carrion Royals, we
Hmm.
have the Storm
We have the
King, the
fire
Fire
giants.
Giants.
Yeah.
So something tells me that the Hornsent predominantly
Mhm.
were in the Land of Shadow.
And
Predominantly.
let's not forget where Elamir is from, the long vanished domain of Eokide, where they wielded their weapons through the mind alone.
Yeah, but that I wouldn't really say Eokide would be a different geographical location to the Lands Between, in my opinion.
I disagree. I disagree. I think that Eokide might have existed in the lands between at some point. As to what means if it was long vanished, as in it formed into another country, or long vanished, as in the literal geographical spot where Eokide was, is gone, is vamoosed, is poofed,
But would
and
that
is no longer there.
but would that not but would then that doesn't make sense then, because then there would be more to it, if that makes sense. There would be more places to it, if that makes sense.
Perhaps, but all we know is that Elamir. Well, here's my stipulation: if the Eokide did not exist within the lands between at some point, how is Elamir there?
What if Elmer's a tarnished?
I don't think Elamir is tarnished.
No, a tarnished.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think Elamir is a tarnished. I don't think.
What makes you think that?
I don't know. It's just something about him. It's just a gut feeling I have with Elamir.
Right.
It's a gut feeling I have about him.
Anyway,
He might be. Anyway, back to the main
back to
crux of the issue.
yes, right. So
I'll let you take over.
right. So we know Marika. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Sorry, never mind. So we know Mark is a shaman, right? Because
Yes.
for the life of us, for the longest time, we couldn't figure out why Radagon and Marika were in one body. Now we know why. Mark is a shaman. What are shamans particularly uniquely good at doing?
Or rather, it's a quality they have in which their flesh conjoins.
Correct. So this is where my theory stands to be, right? I believe that Marika leaving the Land of Shadows took place long before any events of the current game. Right? Now, we don't know how long the events of the game are. Is it 100 years? Is it 1,000 years? We don't know.
Probably 1,000 years.
Right.
I think George R. R. Martin said in an interview, he was on the Stephen Colbert show, and he sort of said that he was sort of taken in to write the story of what happened in the lands between, like, thousands and thousands of years before the events of when the tarnished
comes back.
Is called to the lands between. Is called back to the lands between.
Right. So we'll go with we'll say thousands of years, right? But this is this is at the start of those 1,000 years, right? I believe Marika had escaped the Land of Shadows to get away from the Hornsent and ran into Radagon before everything, right? Before she was married to Godfrey, before the first Elden Lord, she ran into Radagon and had 2 kids. We already know who these 2 kids are.
Mesmer and Melina.
Mesmer and Melina, right? Now, the reason why this is particularly unique is because both of them were born with flames. Mesmer with the Abyssal Serpent's flame. Would that be an accurate statement?
Well, the Abyssal Serpent isn't what... I don't think the Abyssal Serpent...
He was born with a kindling, but the Abyssal Serpent ate away at it.
The Abyssal Serpent not only ate away at his flame and his essence, but like it ate away at its very essence. Effectively, it was eating him from the inside out.
Right.
It was devouring him.
And then
he was born cursed.
Not just that there, he was also born with the power alone to burn the Erd Tree.
because he had his own. He had his own. Forget about having to set himself on fire from the Forge of Ruin. He literally has his own, as we all know by now. He has his own flame, his own sort of brand, for lack of a better word,
Yes.
of fire called Mesmer's Flame.
Right? And then we also know that Melina, thanks to the Frenzied Flame ending, I'm sorry, but Melina is the Glowmite Queen.
I have some thoughts on that, but continue.
Right? Now, we know that she's bodiless, but she does have a soul, right? What other character do we know of that is the same?
Or rather the opposite. It's Rani. Hers is a body in a vessel.
Yes, but the thing
But I
is,
understand what you mean. Her real body is long burned, is long decayed. It's at the top of the Ernia Divine Tower.
Right? But what did she use to kill herself?
The Black Knife Blade, or
Right.
rather the fragment of the Rune of Death she stole that was used to forge the Black Knife Blades.
Right? Whereas we know that the Glowmite Queen had
power. She had direct control over the god-slaying Black Flame.
Yes, but she also she had a direct run-in with Malekith, who wields the full power of the Rune of Death.
Yeah, he effectively wields the Rune of Death embodied, which is the great sword, Malekith's Black Blade.
Yes,
that is what it is. The embodiment of the Rune of Death.
So
he is conjoined with.
Yes. So my assumption to there is the fact that you had one who could destroy the icon of the religion, and then you've got the one who can actually destroy the gods themselves.
Yes.
Funnily enough, both coming from Marika's flesh, right? Now we know
rather Marika's shadow. Which is what Malekith was. It would have been gifted to her by her respective two fingers.
Yes, right. Now this is where information can get a bit scattered. So it can, because the reason why I'm specifically stating it was Radagon that she had consorted with at the start was simply due to the fact that Mesmer has red hair.
Yeah, he's except for bar his physique, he's the spitting image of Radagon. Bar his physique,
right? Not just that. There, I do have a theory about Radagon being linked to the Fire Giants. He is at the best point, he is a descendant of the Fire Giants.
Yeah, that is your belief that he is a descendant of the Fire Giants.
Yes, because the Fire Giants have red hair, like Radagon has red hair, but Radagon despised his red hair.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Because it reminded him of the Fire Giants, and on it goes.
And on it goes, right? So we know that, right? So at that stage, I believe Radagon had joined Marika, and then Marika married Godfrey, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then obviously Godfrey and Radagon, after defeat, because Godfrey used his strength, and I do believe Mesmer took place in this as well, took place in dealing with the Fire Giants to the north first, because it was the first thing that was a direct threat to the Erd Tree.
Yes.
So it was, right? And the reason
you can't exactly rule a landmass with an army of Fire Giants being your next door neighbors.
Correct. Now, the reason why I believe Mesmer the Impaler did take place in this fight is because if you go through the mountaintop of the Giants, a lot of the Giants are impaled, and that spear, what they're impaled with, looks very reminiscent of Mesmer's spear.
Yes, and now I will confess I had my doubts about that. I thought it resembled more the staff of the guilty until I noticed the crossguard, and it is very distinctly a crossguard,
right,
on whatever those things are that's impaling the Fire Giants. And it's not the spitting image of Mesmer's spear, but as you said yourself, it is reminiscent.
It's reminiscent, but you have to remember the time. How much time, because in fairness, it does look like trees are starting to grow out of them, which if you put that over the course of several hundred years, of course, vines and roots are going to take place.
Yes, and things are going to decay.
Correct, right? It's at this stage, once the Fire Giants were put down, this is whenever I believe either Radagon joined them in the fight against the Fire Giants, or joined after they defeated the Fire Giants. Right? Then from defeating the Fire Giants to the north, there's no other real enemies to the north. So there isn't.
Mhm.
The only enemies to the north that they had was the fire giants, and they had the Ruin Forge, or the Forge of
And they
Ruin.
had combined forces with the Zamor warriors, who in the lore had been the enemies of the fire giants since time immemorial.
Correct.
The Zamor warriors and the fire giants had hated each other for easily, probably since it says time immemorial, easily millennia. They hated each other.
Correct. But then with that, right? Because this actually ties in quite well, because with all of that being done, and it actually kind of explains something later on, because I just copped onto this.
Mm-hmm.
It would explain why there's a Zamor soldier in the Weeping Peninsula.
What you think? One of them joined Godfrey's campaign to fight the Storm Lord?
To travel south, because I believe after the fire giants were dealt with, Mesmer, Godfrey, Radagon, and their units traveled south. Now
which is the next logical place to go,
right?
Is travel south.
Yep. But Marika and Radagon hadn't been connected at this stage. They were not conjoined at this stage, right? Now, I believe it was after the fire giants were dealt with that obviously Marika and Godfrey had the golden lineage. That being Godwyn, Moog, and Morgoth. Right? Then, from there, they travelled south. Radagon and Mesmer broke off from the core army to go deal with the Carians, while Godfrey travelled south to deal with the Stormlord.
May I interject here?
Go for it.
Okay, so obviously you said that you wanted me to challenge certain points that you make, of course.
Yep.
Now, I will concede that it is because, and the other people have speculated this too, that because of the fire giants, the corpses of the fire giants are impaled, that does sort of imply that, okay, Mesmer might have been here.
Correct.
It's not recorded in history, but he might have been here.
What?
Which would also sort of explain why the furnace golems bear the visage of the fell god. It might almost be like, perhaps it could be either one of two ways. Mesmer might either admire the power of the flame of the fell god of the giants, or it could be done in mockery. Either or.
I think because Mesmer has his own flame, but his own flame is known to be too strong, I think he actually seeked a slightly weaker flame to fuel the furnace golems.
Yeah, so that they were effective tools for the job, but they didn't cause collateral damage. Which I realized the humor in saying that, considering they did destroy an entire settlement.
Yeah, like,
so
I'm sorry, but how are you going? Like, realistically, if you're sitting behind castle and walls and you see an army of furnace golems coming towards you, what exactly do you think you're going to do?
I'm sorry, not even the Horned Warriors or the Divine Birds Warriors are gonna
like,
they're gonna have a difficult time. They're gonna have a very difficult time.
It sounds like the rumbling from Attack on Titan.
Yeah, rumbling. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't sing songs, but my God, I love that opening song.
Right.
By Sim, I love that opening song.
But that's
such a banger.
Right. So we'll go with Radagon and Mesmer first. So
anyway, Anyway, yes, this is what I want to interject with. This is where I think. Now, here's what I wanted to do. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about this.
Right.
I think rather than Mesmer joining Radagon in his march, well, actually, okay. No, I'll let you continue, but then I want to add my point in at a certain bit.
Right. So
Mesmer and Radagon march south to Liurnia.
South with Godfrey.
But Godfrey, whenever they reach Liurnia, Godfrey goes further south to Limgrave to fight the Stormlord.
Yes.
And of course, Radagon and Mesmer remain in Liurnia.
Correct.
To deal with the Carian royal family.
Correct. And now, obviously, this is whenever Mesmer runs into Rallana and Radagon runs into Rallana.
Renala. Yeah. So many R's.
Yes.
Renala. And Radagon.
Rallana and Mesmer.
And Mesmer, yes. 2 redheads and 2 sorcerers.
Correct.
2 sorceresses. There you go.
And that's where...
Or 2 brunettes, rather.
Pretty much. And that's where I see that happening. So it is. And
Yes.
then, obviously, over the course of that time...
Radagon falls in love with Renala,
Yep.
and Relana might not necessarily the same love, but definitely.
I would personally put it closer to
fosters-
admiration.
Yeah, she fosters an admiration for Mesmer, and so this is where I want to come in. So obviously that happens. Mesmer, at some point at that time, we don't know when. Mesmer then is ordered. This is where I sort of want to interject. Where Mesmer is then ordered to into wherever its geographical location was at the time. He is then ordered by Marika, like, you are marching to Innerlim and Bellarat Divine Tower Settlement and the Bellarat Tower Settlement. And this is the thing, right? Because whenever we first encounter the Hornsent NPC, he says, "Your kind are not forgiven. They are too faithful. And, like my people by Marika long betrayed." And that brings me back to what led us in narration over the storyteller was saying. There was a seduction and a betrayal. Now, this is what I think happened. I believe that Marika... See, obviously, this really actually messes up your timeline a bit.
Well, that's right. Let me see and talk to me and let me find out.
Right. This is what I think happened, right? Before ever there was an Earth Tree. Right.
Uh-huh. We know
we
know it was the primordial crucible.
Yeah, we know it was the primordial crucible was that's what it was at the beginning.
Yes.
Because of the Hornsent.
Yes.
And see, there was a seduction. They say there was a seduction and a betrayal. And this is what implies to me is Marika would have had to gain, in order for her to betray them, she would have had to gain their trust first. In order for them to consider, oh, she betrayed us, she would have had to gain their trust first. At least that's what my mind is saying.
Right.
And some people have speculated, the white flesh that she pulls the golden strings from at the beginning.
Yes.
People have speculated that is the remains of a dead god. Basically, the god that ruled over the Land of Shadow and wherever else before Marika ascended to godhood.
Oh, shit! You just added another piece to it.
To your timeline?
Yeah, you actually managed to succeed on something here, right?
Because that's what I've heard people speculate. Because it would make sense. Because whenever we go to the Gate of Divinity, we re-encounter the biggest badass in Elden Ring's lore.
I need to bring him up later too.
Yeah, the undisputed Giga Chad of the Lands Between. And we also encounter Nicola, who at that point had ascended to godhood. He had fully ascended.
I don't think he had fully ascended at that point.
Well, he was definitely on his way there.
He was close.
Came out of the Gate of Divinity. He was definitely on his way there.
Yes, he was close. We just interrupted him.
Yeah. But let me think. Yeah, see, this is where I'm thinking. I'm thinking to myself, what if Marika used the Hornsent and their resources?
Right. So
I'll let you continue.
Right.
I'll let you continue.
This is something that because you just actually you give me a thought there, so you did, but I'll bring it up later.
Okay.
I need to keep it in mind.
Okay.
I'll bring it up later.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So we'll head back. So
we
jump
back a few sentences.
Yeah. Right. So obviously at that stage, right. So Godfrey had went and defeated the Stormlord. Right.
Mm-hmm.
In that time, honourable duels took place in Lindell, Limgrave, and Caelid, right? And the reason why we know this here is because of the Carrion dueling shield,
Yes.
because it was known that there was ceremonial combat, right?
Yes.
Now, obviously, things play out. Godfrey loses his grace,
Yeah.
and Radagon's called back,
To become the second Elden Lord.
right? But it's at this stage, I believe, it could have. There's a potential. No, actually, no, it would be about right. Godfrey would have been exiled at this stage, and then this is when because Marika has developed basically an overwhelming army at this stage. I think this is whenever she made the power play to become a god.
Okay.
Because now the reason why we know Marika, Radagon, all of them, Mesmer, all of the kids were all together at one point was because Radahn looked up to Mesmer and Gaius.
Yeah. And Gaius as older brothers, which to me confirms that Mesmer and Gaius were at least chronologically older than Radahn. Because why would you look up to someone as an older brother if they weren't physically older than you?
Correct.
You know,
Not
why would
just
you look
that
up to
there.
someone as an because he would have just seen them as brothers then, surely.
Not just that there. Gaius and Radahn learned gravity magic from the same Alabaster Lord.
Yes, along with the enigmatic Gaia, who hopefully we will get.
Hopefully. Maybe.
Hopefully we will get. Maybe. Please, Miyazaki.
Right?
Please.
So
more Elden Ring content. Anyway.
So we know that they were all in the lands between at one stage.
Yes. They were all in the lands between. Mesmer, and even Mesmer knows what's his first words, just mongrel intruder, thou art tarnished, it seemeth. So he knows he's not been in the realm of shadows so long, he knows what tarnished are.
Right?
He knows what we are.
So that means that he knew who Godfrey was.
Yeah,
because Godfrey himself is a tarnished.
He was the first tarnished.
Correct. So it's this stage. It is at this stage because obviously Godfrey would have lost his grace, and then there's how they became tarnished.
Yes.
Mesmer would have had to have been there to witness Godfrey's exile.
Yes, and the long march.
And then it's at this stage that Marika makes the power play. Because Marika goes back to the Land of Shadows with Mesmer, Gaius, Relena, because Relena is following Mesmer, but again, I believe it's more admiration than it is love. And saying that Mesmer's one hell of a warrior whenever you think about it.
He very much is. His agility is
godlike. Exactly, pure godlike, so it is, right? So it's at this stage that they make their power play, so it is.
Yeah.
But Marika leaves the lands between with a very specific. What I believe now, as I say, this is pure. This is a completely lunatic theory, but I believe Marika went to the Divine Gate to kill two birds with one stone.
Okay.
Right. So my theory is, she also severed the connection of Placidusax's god as well.
I think I came across, I didn't delve too much into it, but I think there might have been a theory about that, where like this was like, you know, the god of that Placidusax was served as Elden Lord at that time.
And I'll tie this in because I'm nearly 100% sure that the god that Placidusax served was not the Greater Will.
No, it was not.
Right?
I think that definitely goes without saying. It wasn't the Greater Will he served.
Right? But
rather an outer god of dragons.
I actually don't think,
if such a thing.
I actually don't think it might be anything to do with dragons. It's just an outer god, like as says.
Just an obscure outer god.
Pretty much. And I'll explain this in a minute, so I will, right? So I believe that whenever Marika made her power play, she also left with the Fingerslayer blade from the Nox. Right?
Yes.
Because I believe that she wanted to kill two birds with one stone. Because as of right now, she only has, what, statistically speaking, 4 cursed children? Well, 3. Because
Well, she has. Well, in your timeline, are Mikola and Melania born at this stage?
no, they're
In
not.
your timeline?
No,
Okay, no,
they're
they're
not.
not. Right.
Right, and there is a reason why there's a reason why this all plays out. Right, so
Mm-hmm.
whenever obviously she made the part, she obviously went to the land of shadows for a little bit of revenge, you would say.
Which is natural enough considering what the Horn Scent did to the shamans.
Right, so this is where I believe everything sort of plays out. So
Yeah.
obviously Mesmer is in the middle of his holy crusade.
Mm-hmm.
In doing that, there, I believe Marika found out about Matir,
Yes, the
who was
mother
the
of fingers.
who was the first envoy of the Greater Will.
Yep.
I'm being specific on my language here. The first envoy of the Greater Will, and
Circle, italicize, and embolden first.
yep, and she used the finger slayer because on Matir there is a wound on Matir's chest, not the gash where she spits out shit, but there's an actual wound on Matir's chest that I believe that the Finger Slayer blade severed Matir's connection to the Greater Will. So I do. So that
You
was
think that severed it's her connection to the Greater Will?
correct because Matir's broken. She's not.
She's broken and abandoned.
Yep, and I believe that's how it happened. So it is.
Right.
Then following that, hang on, sorry, my phone's being weird. Right.
Yeah.
So
The Greater Will takes its anger out on the Nox for their heresy.
bingo, because I believe this. You'll understand my thought process here in a second, right? I believe that from there, the Elden Beast was sent, but hasn't arrived yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because obviously space time takes time to travel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Meteor, falling star.
yep. So Marika wounded Matir, which severed the Greater Will, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that the heresy that was called the betrayal was that whenever she got to the gate of divinity, you need a consort to become a god, right?
Yes.
So we know that she had Radagon. But thanks to her special nature, being a shaman, that was how they melded into one body.
Yeah.
But I believe
she conjoined Radagon with her.
Yep.
Literally unifying them in both body and spirit.
Correct. But as a catalyst to become godhood, I believe that she may have also, with the Finger Slayer blade in hand, also may have wounded Placidusax's elder god in the process.
Well, see, here's my thing about that. The Horn Scent clearly viewed themselves as superior. I mean, you look at the grandeur of Inner Lane, right? Look at the grandeur of the towers, right?
Yep.
It is clear that. Like, here's the thing, right? You know that cutscene where we burn like the wee miniature shadow tree and it dispels the shadow illusion around Inner Lane?
Yep.
And you just see that zoom out shot and like the sort of distant holy choir voices sort of like sounding off. That immediately screams An Orlando vibes.
Yes.
You know, this is a place of religious significance. This is a place of divinity.
It's not.
And so.
Oh, sorry, I'll let you finish off.
So this is what I'm saying. So I don't think. This is why I think Placidusax's god was even way before this, because there's a few details I've come across that stipulates that Elden Ring's world is older than what the lore is portraying that it is.
I agree with that, but I only have one argument against it though.
And what's that?
Placidusax's god is the only one unaccounted for in the Land of Shadows. Every other god is referenced within every other elder god is referenced within the Land of Shadows, bar Placidusax's. So
it's a fled god.
It's a fled god.
But that's the thing. It says that it is fled, not that it's dead.
Yes,
That was an unintentional rhyme, by the way, dear viewers,
but
or dear listeners,
what
rather.
would cause a god to flee?
Probably something that could kill it.
And what did by theory, this is pure theory, what did Marika go to the Land of Shadows with? The Finger
Purely by
Slayer
your
blade.
theory, purely by your own theory, the Finger Slayer blade. Purely by your own theory,
The one weapon that can wound a god or an envoy.
or even the Greater Will itself. And that's where it gets into, because I've been doing some digging into. So obviously we know about gods. This is a bit of a side sort of thing here.
Yep.
We know about that there's gods, and then there's outer gods, and then there's all these, various gods of the lands between. And obviously some of them, like, it's sort of like, as you and me were discussing once, different gods, different rules.
Yep.
You know. And there's a sealed god. We know that there's a sealed god of rot. We know that there's, obviously, we have the frenzied flame, which is you could say, the biggest enemy, the arch nemesis of the Greater Will, because the Greater Will embodies order.
I would say the
You
Frenzied
have-
Flame argue is basically against all of it. Every
It's
god.
against all of it. It's against all gods. But there's a parallel, obviously, between the frenzied flame and the Greater Will, where the frenzied flame embodies chaos, the Greater Will embodies order. So they're two. It's like a two sides of the same coin situation.
Correct.
And so, and of course, we have potentially. I'm not saying this is confirmed, but potentially the Dark Moon, which is the closest of the celestial bodies.
Correct.
Potentially the Dark Moon is an outer god. That's not confirmed. And see, there's a lot of different things that quantifies as a god in Elden Ring. And so I'm thinking to myself, rather than sort of a structured hierarchy, I think it's all just like very different gods at different levels of power, at different statuses of power, shall we say. And I think this is just a side point here. And again, but I think the Greater Will is more or less up there, is pretty up there. It's up there.
In
on
terms
the
of
divine hierarchy.
Yes.
It's up there.
In terms of strength, I would say it's probably the strongest, but
It's probably because it's presumably held the greatest influence over the lands between.
Yep. So from there, that's where I believe that it's hypothetical, but it's the only one that is unaccounted for, because every other outer god is referenced within the Land of Shadows. The Fell God's referenced.
The Formless Mother is referenced.
Formless
through
Mother.
The Blood Fiends.
God of Rot. The
Through Romina.
Yeah, Romina. All of the other gods are referenced.
Midra, the Frenzied Flame.
Yep.
Easily one of the best boss fights of the DLC, by the way.
Absolutely. But there's only one that's unaccounted for, and there's the dragon.
The dragon god of that Placiduous.
But I also believe
Elden Lord 2.
But I also might.
Well, no, because are we forgetting someone?
Baal.
Curse you, Baal!
Yes, I'll deal with
Yes.
Baal in a second, because I do.
And the Dragon Priestess.
Right, but I'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to Baal. We'll get to Baal eventually.
Yes, right.
Or maybe Baal's a topic for a different video.
Possibly, because there's a few things.
Anyway, I apologize to listeners and all. We have digressed a bit
again.
Right. Sorry.
So
okay,
that's whenever because I believe Marika melded with Radagon to gain his power to. Because I believe that the god that Placiduous worshipped was the god that's seen over the primordial crucible.
Okay.
Because the primordial crucible is all about scales, wings, feathers,
and
horns. Oddly enough, what just so happened?
What do the dragons have?
Just so happen to have.
They have horns, they have wings, and they have scales.
So I believe that's where the betrayal came from. Is basically the god that looked after her, quote unquote, because whenever she was born, that would have been the outer god of that timeline, or not timeline, but of that era.
Yes.
And then once she became a god and severed that god, that's how I believe she became a god herself, because she I think that there's whenever the Greater Will just went Elden Ring now, because
Well,
she,
I think the Elden Ring. I think the Elden Ring is something that has existed. I think the Elden Ring is one of those things that has existed. No one knows how long it's existed, but it's evident that all of these gods, these outer gods or celestial entities, are vying for control over it. They're all trying to gain control over it because Plastigisax was Elden Lord
yep,
in the time of the dragons, and you can only, in my by my logic, you can only be an Elden Lord if there's an Elden Ring.
correct. But I believe that they're each Elden Ring themselves are different, because if you look at the Elden Ring
Oh,
that's
they're
in,
definitely modified. They're definitely
yeah,
modified. Like each Elden Ring is modified for a different age.
yep. So that
So
there,
that's confirmed from all the different endings you can get.
correct.
You can have
So
the Age of Order, the Blessing of Despair, the Age of the Dustborn, easily the most forgettable.
yeah.
Uh,
So
and
taking that into account, that's whenever I believe whenever Marika basically became divinity.
yeah,
That's how that happened. Is she severed
she severed the connection. Yeah,
to the dragon god, right?
yeah.
Now, obviously, she once all that transpires, she leaves the
Mhm.
lands of shadow, leaves
Yes.
Mesmer there, and then blankets the entire thing in a veil,
Mhm.
which is the
Like
shadow
the
tree.
Shadow Tree.
She
Like
blankets,
our boy, the Shadow Tree.
yeah. She severs all mainland connection, because there is the pillar that says it's the central pillar that says it is the center of the lands
Of
between.
the lands between, which is why I believe in the ancient times this place was geographically part of the lands between.
But it was severed,
But it was severed or revealed rather.
veiled.
It has been
Right?
obscured.
Then we know that Marika comes back.
Yes.
Now we have a reason for why Grand Sax attacked Leyndell.
Oh, for vengeance for his god.
There you go. Now we have a reason why Grand Sax challenged Leyndell.
Meanwhile, Mesmer is purging the horn scent in the land of shadow.
There you go. Now we're starting to tie things up, you see.
Now we're sucking diesel.
Now we're sucking diesel, right? So from there, now that we know what we know, that there's why that's what I believe. There's why I believe Grand Sax attacked Leyndell was for that reason, right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, in this time period, Marika and Melania are born.
Melania and Mikula
Or Melania and Mikula are born, right? Now,
yes.
Melania is cursed with the scarlet rot from the rot god.
Mhm.
And I believe that the reason why Mikula doesn't age is because he was cursed by the dragon god. Because what's the one thing dragons don't do?
Age.
There you go. So I believe that was a last coup de grace from the dragon god.
The dragon god is basically, all right, Marika, that's how you want to play it. I curse your son with eternal youth.
Which would then stop Mikula from ever obtaining his full potential.
Yes.
Right? Then
you suggest that this curse not only limited his growth physically but spiritually as well.
Bingo. Right? So then
That's an interesting speculation.
Yep.
I'll admit.
So obviously things go on as planned.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously
the plot thickens.
The plot thickens because obviously Rana conducts the Night of Black Knives.
Yeah, Rani. Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, Rani. There's so many fucking R's.
So many R's. So many.
Right? So Rani conducts
Martin.
Rani conducts the Night of Black Knives.
Yes.
And then it's at this point that Marika is like, right.
She's had enough.
She's had enough, and she shatters the Elden Ring.
This is why I think, because here's the thing. Now, this is obviously where we're sort of getting into the established lore of the game. This is what I think about Marika. I don't think Marika ever truly believed in the greater will, or at the very least, there was always part of her that had doubts about the greater will.
Right.
Because when obviously
this is something that I do want to bring up, right? So,
Okay,
because
go ahead.
this might tie in a little bit better, because I did say at this state, right, during obviously her becoming divinity, the Elden Beast hadn't arrived yet.
Right.
So
Yes, I remember you saying this. Yes, continue.
right. So I believe obviously Mikola, Melania
This
were
plays
born.
into something that I believe as well.
Right.
But go ahead.
Mikola, Melania was born, and everything was going smoothly, right?
Yes.
But I believe, and this is pure hypothetical, it was after Mikola was born that the Elden Beast had physically arrived in the lands between.
In the lands between.
Right? To keep
Why do you believe the Elden Beast arrived at this moment in the lands between?
Because it because of it's, as says, I think the Elden Beast was sent more as an enforcer of the greater will rather than a guardian of the greater will.
Yeah, rather than a vassal in the traditional sense.
Correct. So
it was an enforcer. It was there to keep an eye on people.
Right? But I believe that the Elden Beast arrived as the Elden Ring was shattered.
Yes.
And the reason why I believe this is because whenever we find Radagon and Marika, they are currently, in the most polite sense, they're somewhat crucified.
No, they are. They absolutely are. They are crucified.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because they did not take part in the defense during the shattering. Morgoth took up that role.
Yes, but Marco was obviously crucified as punishment for shattering the Elden Ring, and I believe the reason Radagon is sharing her punishment is because he failed to repair it. So the Elden Beast would naturally be like, "You shattered it. I'm crucifying you, or you have exacted the heavy toll." But then he would look to Radagon, and despite Radagon's best efforts, I would say the Elden Beast, if we're going along the line that the Elden Beast is an enforcer,
yep,
he would say, "You failed when you weren't supposed to. You failed me. You have failed the greater will. I don't care if you give it your best effort. It wasn't enough. You suffer the same fate."
Correct. Right?
So that's why I think so. Basically, the Elden Beast is you give your best, and if your best isn't good enough, well then.
Well, that would be a god's
essentially
mentality for you. So it would be.
Well, certainly a tyrannical god, anyway.
Well, is any god ever actually good?
Well, as far as Elden Ring's concerned, they're not an overly cheery bunch.
No, they're not. Right? So, because we know that Marika and Radagon did not take place in the Shattering War.
No, they did not have any. They didn't have any. And in fact, after the Elden Ring was shattered, Marika vanished. It was only recorded in history that Marika vanished, nowhere to be found.
And then there's whenever Morgoth took up the mantle as the Omen King.
Yes, the last of all kings.
Right? So obviously you have, and this also ties perfectly in because the Shattering War was the perfect opportunity for Mohg to steal Mikola.
Mm-hmm.
Now we already know that Mohg was already under the influence.
Charmed.
Alright, charmed.
Yep.
But Melania was not at the Halig Tree to stop Mohg from running away with him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Melania went to challenge Radahn.
Because Mikola had requested that whenever he ascends to godhood, that he wanted Radahn to be his consort.
And I believe Radahn said no.
Here's what I believe: either Radahn said no, or he said yes, but in an affectionate way to humor Mikola, because maybe Radahn, for all his good nature, maybe he doubted that Mikola would become god.
Right.
Would become a god. But either way, I don't think Radahn. Either way, I don't think Radahn. I do not believe for a second that he genuinely agreed to become Mikola's consort.
There's two ways you can spin this.
Yeah.
There's two. Right. Let me be clear here. This is pure speculation. There is There is two ways you can spin this.
Yes.
Either whenever Radahn was younger, he was able to be charmed.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever the Elden Ring broke and Radahn was gifted his Great Rune, that was whenever the charm shattered. Or Radahn said no.
Or there could have been another thing that shattered the charm.
The shot.
Mikula going inside his cocoon. Potentially.
I wouldn't say that.
No.
No, I wouldn't say that there because
I figured it was worth throwing out there at the very least.
But no, you could spin it either one of two ways. Now, personally speaking, I believe Radahn just outright said no because you never actually hear Radahn's reply.
You never hear his reply. And honestly, I'm inclined to agree. I am inclined to agree with you. I don't believe he said yes because, as we all know, Radahn had his own mission.
Yep, and that ties in later on. Don't worry, that ties in. Because this actually ties in because I'm going to make a hypothetical of what if Mikula succeeded. And I'll tie that in a second, right? So,
yes.
Now, where were we? Elden Ring shattered, Morgoth defend.
Elden Ring shattered, Morgoth defends it. Marika and Radagon are both conjoined in the Erd Tree.
Yep. So
and the Elden Beast effectively has full control.
Yep. So we're now at the point of the Shattering War.
Yes.
Right. So obviously, Mohg runs away with Mikula. Malenia goes to face Radahn. And fun fact, I have a sneaking suspicion about something, by the way.
What's that?
Why does Commander Niall have the unallied gold needle?
Commander O'Neill?
Yeah, why does he have the unallied gold needle?
That's very interesting. I never actually gave much thought to that. Why does he have it?
I believe Malenia shattered it. Like, remember she thrusted the sword into herself and released the Scarlet Aeonia?
No, she thrust the sword into Radahn, but she would have had to because Mikula gave her the needle. If I remember correctly, Mikula gave her the needle so that she could control, or she could at least keep the Scarlet Rot in check.
Correct.
But as we all know, she gave herself over to the Scarlet Rot because that's the only way she could, in very big quotation marks, defeat, and like I said, in very big quotation marks, defeat Radahn.
But if you watch that cutscene very closely, she plunges the handle of her sword into her chest as well.
I don't think she does.
If you watch it, because you can see blood dripping down from her side down to Radahn.
Here's another thing, though. This is an interesting theory. This is a point I'll bring up later on because it mainly pertains to Millicent's questline, but it's an interesting point. I may have seen it online before, I'm not sure, but anyway, I'll let you continue. So Malenia, she fights Radahn, she turns Caelid into a hellscape,
right?
To put it informally.
So now, this is the reason why, right? I believe Malenia broke that needle to release the Scarlet Aeonia.
Yes.
Right? Now, this all ties in, this actually ties up into a nice little bow, so it does. So this is a fun fact, right? So I believe she broke the needle to release the Scarlet Aeonia, which then explains why, because where Commander O'Neill is where she released the Scarlet Aeonia.
Yes. That's the Aeonian Swamp.
So that would...
Why else would it be called the Aeonian Swamp?
Correct. So that would explain why O'Neill...
Why he has the golden needle.
Correct. Right?
Now here's the other question though. Who does he bear his allegiance to? Radahn or Mikula?
I personally believe it's Radahn.
I think it might be, and then Commander Niall as well. Well, no, Commander Niall, because he has a part of the Haligtree. So he's either defending the Haligtree or he is preventing people from going there.
I believe... for a start, I believe the two of them come from the same company.
The same company of mercenaries.
Because they're banished knights.
Yes.
So I believe they're from the same company, but they split off.
They split off
from each other, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, though, right? So obviously,
still badasses.
Now, still badasses, right? So Commander O'Neill, I firmly believe, worked with the Redmanes.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Right?
I believe that. Because why else would he be there fighting the good fight?
Correct. Right. Following that, there. I'm nearly sure, because we know the Cleanrot Knight Finlay carried Malenia home.
Yes.
But
all the way back to the Haligtree.
All the way back to the Haligtree. But I believe Saint Trina is what put her to sleep.
Oh.
Now, the reason why Centrina would
Okay.
put her to sleep is simply due to the fact, but without the needle, her scarlet rot will run rampant.
Yes.
And that is why the halig tree starts to rot away.
Because Melania is in such fuck. And we even see Scarlet Rot is beginning to dwell in the halig tree.
Right.
We see pests there.
Yes, but that there's just as a passive aura from Melania.
Yes, because wherever she goes, the Scarlet Rot, without the needle, wherever she goes, the Scarlet Rot follows.
Yeah, she will just exude Scarlet Rot. But
anyone who comes into contact with her will run the risk of becoming infected.
Yep, but she's asleep. But she's asleep for such a long time, and there's only one character that can put you to sleep like that.
Yeah, and that is
Saint Trina.
Saint Trina.
So I believe,
which also implies Mikola might have had a hand in that.
Right. Well, Mikola, we already know that Mikola give. My brain is frying up here, so it is.
Sorry.
We already know.
I'm very bad for this. For anyone listening, I'm very bad.
It's not that there. It's just the amount of damn names we're talking about.
Yeah.
But we already know that Melania. We already know that Melania had a connection with Mikola. Mikola developed the unalloyed gold for her so she could repel the rot god.
Yes.
Right? But I believe because without the needle, she would be consumed by the rot, which ends up happening in our fight.
Yes.
I believe Saint Trina.
She literally ascends to become a goddess.
Right? But that would have happened so much earlier if Saint Trina didn't put her to sleep.
Yeah.
So that
you would have had another crazy deity in the lands between running rampant.
Correct. So I believe Saint Trina was the one, even though, yes, she was wounded from her fight with Radahn, but there was no reason for her to sleep as long as she did.
True.
So I believe Saint Trina was the one sort of keeping her at bay until we obviously make ourselves known, and then she's just like, right, bitch, let's fight.
Yeah, because she has no idea who we are.
Correct. She is.
And let's face it, that would also imply, because Radahn, we're talking about the length of time that we are, that would have meant Melania would have had to have been asleep for thousands of years.
Bingo.
Thousands of years. And I'm sorry, whether you're a god, a demigod, or an Empyrean, whatever, you don't sleep for that long.
Bingo. Unless
you don't sleep for thousands of years, unless you are enchanted to do so.
Correct. And that is why I believe Saint Trina had a hand in it.
I think you're onto something there. Okay, personally, I know you said it's my job to challenge you here, but I personally think you're onto something with that one. I think you make a good point.
So let's
aren't there lilies that you can farm there that you can use to make Saint Trina items? Maybe.
Where?
Maybe there's flowers in the halig tree. Is there not flowers that you can farm to make like items like Saint Trina arrows and stuff? Is there
I'm not sure. There might be.
Don't quote me on that, people. I'm only saying there might be.
Might be.
Don't quote me on that though. Don't quote me on that. But anyway.
But so continuing that thought process, right?
Continuing along, yes.
So obviously, then we have the Shadows, or we have the Land of Shadows DLC, and then that is whenever we gain access to it.
Yes.
The Crusade's still going on, right?
Yeah, or rather, yes, they're trying. It's more like it's almost like the aftermath of it now.
Yes, it's the war has already completed, and now it's just the aftermath that we're following up on.
It's the aftermath of the fighting, where basically you have like just skirmishes now, more so. I think
more so.
You've just got skirmishes.
I just also realized that Bale would have had to have attacked Placidusax before Marika. Yeah, actually, that makes sense. Bale would have actually attacked Placidusax before Marika became a god.
Well, Bale is considered a traitor.
Correct.
To the dragons. But he's considered a traitor, so yeah, it would have made sense. What? Well, how long?
Hang on, because Bale would have had to have attacked Placidusax during the Age of the Gods, or during the Age of his god, because whenever obviously Marika came closely after and severed the connection, which then she erected the veil, which then would have trapped Bale inside the Land of Shadows.
Yeah.
So it would have
unless
I have more to talk about whenever it comes to Bale, but I'll explain that in a later one.
I think Bale is his own video.
Bale is his own video. Right? So then taking so
His own podcast, rather.
his own
It is
podcast,
his
yeah.
own podcast.
Right. So obviously we all make our way to the Land of Shadows with Miquella's brigade, quote unquote, because you've got the
His
Horn
followers.
Scent, Freya,
Ansbach, you've got
Ansbach,
Mur, Dane,
right, and Dane
and Tialia.
and Tialia, right. So we are right. And then obviously through that story, we then discover that Moog was enchanted.
Yes, we discovered that he beat the allegations.
Yep.
He was enchanted.
He was enchanted, and his corpse was absconded with, as Ansbach likes to say. We find out from Moore that the pests are actually potentially friendly.
Yes, they are potentially friendly.
They are they are more.
They have that's the forager brood.
The forager brood. They actually have the ability to trade and speak, and
they have intelligence. They can trade goods.
Yep.
And they can.
They have intelligence that we didn't. We thought they were just mindless beasts, where they actually have intelligence.
They had some form of intelligence, because obviously you can see them at certain points, like worshipping the rot.
Not just worshipping, they also in
Gowrie.
Also
Gowrie.
Huh?
Because Gowrie is a pest in disguise.
I've got a theory about Gowrie. I think Gowrie's actually the rock god, or an envoy of the rock god.
Maybe, but he's definitely, because whenever you kill him when you first meet him, he turns into a pest.
Yep. Right.
But I definitely think he's a pest in disguise. Anyway.
Yeah.
Or
right.
He's possessing a pest. Oh, maybe he's like a Shibriri situation.
Yep.
But anyway, I digress.
Right. So obviously, right. So once we get to the Land of Shadows, we run into the standard. We run into everybody. You've got Letta, you've got Needle Knight Letta, who is an absolutely
avid follower. She's a fanatic.
She's a fanatic, right? You've got Horn Scent.
Absolute fanatic.
You've got Horn Scent, who was charmed into obedience.
Yes.
You have Moore, who just literally wanted to look after his forager brood. He was the supply man of the group.
He was easily, like, if not for how tragic his story is, like, he was easily, like, the most wholesome of the bunch.
And then you have Ansbach, who was a pure blood knight of Moog.
He was of Moog, a pure blood knight of Moog, loyal to Moog,
who had his heart robbed.
Who had his heart stolen by Miquella.
But then, obviously, as we proceed through the Land of Shadows, we find Rallana, who is, oddly enough, gatekeeping the rest of the Land of Shadows. Well, unless you go around it.
Unless you go around her.
Right? And then, obviously, you've got Mesmer, so on and so forth, right? You've got all the bosses you meet.
Gatekeeping Innerlean.
Right? But then, the big thing that I find is once you get to the end, right? Now there is other snippets that I do have to deal with, but that there's all for later till I connect my thoughts on this.
Yes.
But the thing is, though, I think regardless, Miquella was doomed to fail.
Why do you think he was doomed to fail? That's interesting,
right?
Why do you think he was doomed to fail?
Because even if he had succeeded, so say we weren't able to stop him, and Radahn became his consort.
This is your what if he succeeded.
Yep. He still would have failed.
Why?
Because now there's nobody to hold back the stars.
Because Radahn is under his.
So the lands between would have been perpetually invaded by falling star beasts and Ostels, and eventually it would have led to the ruin of the lands between. So
and because we don't know, because they are foreign entities of the stars, where, let's face it, the outer gods reside.
Yep.
I think we can all say that the cosmos, the outer gods, are a blatant play on H.P. Lovecraft's outer gods, where they're up there in the cosmos. They don't have a direct will per se, but they influence the world in their own little ways.
But I believe this is where the difference between Ronnie's questline comes in and Miquella's comes in. Because Miquella wants to rule the lands between with subservience. Charm everybody.
Yes, he wants to take away. We established this, like, we both, like, Miquella wants to take away free will.
Right?
But that's what he wants.
Yep.
for all his good intentions,
But
he
eventually,
wants to remove free will.
Miquella would fall to the amount of falling star beasts and Astels that would pour down upon the lands
And
between.
they might not even. And the point I was leading to is because they're from space, he might not even be able to charm them with his magic.
You can't, because they're not. I can't say they're not sentient creatures.
I think they're definitely sentient. I think,
But
or like whenever they're falling star beasts, I think that's when they're mad beasts. It's only when they become Estelles that they start to develop sentience. But that's just my own belief on
But
the
there's
matter.
no
That's
guarantee
just my own
Miquella's
speculation.
charm's going to work on something that isn't from his verse.
Yes, that isn't from his world.
Right?
There's no guarantee.
Now, whereas whenever you take Ronnie's
Oh,
quest
strange.
line, you're going to challenge the stars.
Yes.
You're going with
You're
Ronnie
on a
to the
1,000
stars.
year, you're going with her to the stars. You are removing the stars. In a way, holy shit, in a way, Rani is actually fulfilling Radan's own work because obviously there's mistranslations between the Japanese and the English, where Rani's quest line almost sounds kind of bad because you can't understand a single word she's saying. The certainties of faith, sight, and sound, and all made possibilities. But then you get to the line where she says, "Then I will abandon this soil with mine order."
Yep.
So she is talking about making an order where basically what I took this from is she is making an order where where the sights and sounds and all become impossibilities, but then she abandons the lands between and even the world the lands between is on with that order, thereby removing the Elden Ring.
Removing the Elden Ring, not just so leaving people to the way that they were. They can make their own decisions.
Removing the outer gods to have the ability because they don't have an Elden Ring to modify.
Not just that they also have the Elden Ring coming to them. Because by the end of the game, we basically have the Elden Ring, so we're now going to go challenge the gods themselves.
Yeah.
Because we're now going into the cosmos.
If they make a second Elden Ring, do you think that could come into play? If they ever made a second Elden Ring?
Possibly. It depends on which one you consider canon. It depends on which of the endings you consider canon.
You consider canon. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it does. Because then, like, you can use Ronnie's questline, but then you also have the Frenzied Flame ending with the Glow-Eyed Queen at the end.
Yes, with Melina. Which I have my own thoughts about Melina being the Glow-Eyed Queen.
Hands down, she's the Glow-Eyed Queen. I'm sorry, there's.
Well, okay, I can certainly see why you think that because obviously her eye is basically whenever you see her blue eye, you think of the night sky.
Shit!
And I think the glow is meant to refer to twilight.
Spud. Sorry.
Yes.
By any chance, and this is going to be a bit of a morbid point. By any chance, is her eye the eye of the occultation one?
The eye of what?
Do you know you've got the black eyes in the DLC that kills the person?
The eye of the eye of obfuscation.
Yeah. What if that's her eye, and then obviously you had Mesmer with the eye of grace? Which then
no, because see, here's the thing: Mesmer never opens his left eye.
Yes, but
so we don't know that.
Yes,
here's the thing.
But the thing, right? But this is what I mean, right? But because technically Mesmer's blind.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in his second form, anyway.
Yes,
yeah.
But think about it, right? It would be his left eye.
Yeah.
And is it her? No. Is it his left eye and her right eye?
No, they both have the same eye closed.
They do, right? But the thing is, though, is she's known as the Glow-Eyed Queen. No, hang on, wait there. No, because they've got opposite eyes. Because whenever she opens her eyes, it's a Glow-Eyed. It's the Glow-Eyed. But what if it's the actual? It's the eye. It's the occultation one.
I don't think so because the obfuscation one is pure black. Hers is a deep blue, but the obfuscation is pure black. Here's what I'm saying. This is why I have my doubts about Melina being the Glow-Eyed Queen, right? Because it is said that the Glow-Eyed Queen was an Empyrean like Marika, but then that could also be just referring to the fact that Marco's, of course, once an Empyrean. So
yes,
But
the thing is, though, right? But taking it into consideration, what other Empyreans do we know of?
Rani, Melania, and Mikola.
Right now, of all of them, there, who is granted granted a wolf? Who is granted a wolf?
A shadow.
Who is granted a shadow?
Rani.
Ronnie. Right. What if Melina? The reason why I'm still adamant that Melina is the Glowmite Queen is because the way that everything sort of ties together. Because I don't believe that she became. I don't believe she was aware of her. No, actually, I believe that. No, I do. No, actually, that's a lie. I do believe that she knew about it because obviously you had the Godskins that followed her and wielded her flame. Now, the reason why I believe all of this here is because she had. I believe that she must have taken part. She must have been. I'm actually nearly sure that she actually might have taken part in the
Night of the Black Knives.
No, I think she took part. I think she was there whenever. I think she was in the Land of Shadows with Mesmer.
You think she took part in the Crusade?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
Because whenever you summon her, she uses the minor archery incantation.
Yeah.
And there's only one other place that you can get it.
The Land of Shadows.
The Land of
Well,
Shadows.
see, hers, and even then, hers is still bigger than ours.
Yep. But then that would also imply, like as says,
making that joke physically hurt me.
But here, hang on. Even tying that all together, it would also imply. It just adds another person with a split personality.
Melina
and the Glowmite Queen in one body. Mikola and Cintrina
in one body.
And Marika and Radagon in one body.
I do see what you're saying.
Because there does seem to be a common fucking trend with it.
Well, there's definitely a trend of like the conjoining of personalities and the conjoining of bodies is definitely a trend.
Because what if
there's only one detail of this timeline that really confuses me,
right?
Because whenever we speak to Muriel in the Church of Vows,
yep,
he says that Radagon led Marika's army. He was at the head of a great golden host. Now, whenever I hear the term golden host, I think the golden army or army of gold, which obviously gold is synonymous with the age of the Earth Tree and the Golden Order.
Yep.
And so that would, to me, that thereby implies that the age of the Earth Tree and the Golden Order was established by the time Radagon went to Liurnia. And if it was already established, that would have meant Marika was already a god, which meant she would have already had to have dealt with the Horn Scent by that point.
Not necessarily, because what if the Golden Order was in its infancy?
Oh, or because here's one other thing. Even the spells used by the Horn-Scent Inquisitors, they are arcs of gold.
Yep.
They have golden spells.
Yep.
Spells of gold. So yeah, well, you might be onto something.
So what? Plus, they're all garbed in gold cloth as well. So.
Well, I don't know about gold cloth, but
it's more yellow, but you get the idea.
Creamy white cloth, anyway. Well, the Horned Warriors have yellow garbs on their armor.
Yeah.
And then of course, yeah. Well, no, you've got a point because the divine birds, they're golden divine birds.
Yep.
So
So what if the order was in its infancy?
And better yet, this is where my point about the betrayal comes in. So what if Marika? So obviously, like I said, in order for you to betray someone, they need to trust you.
Correct.
They need to trust you. And so because the Horn-Scent considered that Marika betrayed them, she would therefore have had to gain their trust.
Correct.
So what if, this is what I'm thinking. So along with your whole thing of Marika and Radagon, they meet, they fall in love, they have kids and all that kind of stuff. What I'm thinking is, what if Marika entered in, shall we say, for lack of a better term, a political arrangement, shall we say? Almost let's maybe think of it as a political marriage. Because here's the thing, throughout all the Horn Scents, let me ask you this. what is the divine beast dancing lion? What are they?
I would say that they're horn scent.
No, 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 but not even that. They are the sculpted keepers of the tower. Because here's what I was doing. I was doing the Horn Sent Grand Dame's quest line, shall we
Uh
say?
huh.
And basically, so obviously you speak to her first, you fight the divine beast dancing lion, and then you go back to her wearing the divine beast dancing lion. Now, obviously, I removed all other items of clothing because you know the way how these things get, you have to take all your clothes
Yep.
off when you go into the frenzied flame, blah 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 blah. So I didn't want anything to. I wanted to nullify any potential interference with it. So I just went back, wore the dancing beast, you know, the headset, you get the headpiece you get after you kill the dancing lion, the big oversized lion head.
Yep.
And she says, "Oh, I have longed to hear this, smell this scent. There's a sculpted keeper stand before me. At long last, our voices have reached the heavens." And so they refer to. So I don't think this is what I think. I think the horn scent did believe in a divinity. There was a divine essence, but I don't think they believed in a god per se. I don't think they had a god per se. I think their god, quote unquote, you know, metaphorically speaking, was the natural world. It was the crucible.
Yes.
It was the primordial crucible, was in effect their god. Right.
Right.
So and and so there you have it. So what I think now, this is pure speculation. I have not encountered any evidence whatsoever to support this. This is purely my speculation. But obviously, at the lead, with any establishment, there needs to be a leader.
Correct.
With any establishment. And referring back to the story trailer, Leda refers to the seduction and the betrayal.
Right.
So I believe Marika, so obviously there was no way in hell Marika was ever going to forgive the Horn Scent for what they did to the shamans. There was no way
No chance.
she was ever going to, no chance in hell. She was on a warpath.
Correct.
She wanted revenge. And so what I think is, going along with your timeline of she flees the land of shadows to distance herself from Innerleam and the Horn Scent.
Yep.
Meets Radagon, da, 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 da. She goes back, and instead of starting a war with the Horn Scent, she pledges her allegiance to the Horn Scent. And you could say the Horn Scent are rather skeptical at first. Okay, well, hold on, she's a shaman. Well, okay, we'll see. And but eventually, they begin to actually let down their guard around Marika. They begin to let down their guard around her, and eventually they come to trust her. Eventually, now you can use seduction in the literal term or the figurative term, in which she seduces them with her beguiling personality or her beauty.
Yeah.
For instance, you know, seduction doesn't necessarily mean, you know, carnal desire.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't necessarily mean you know, sex.
Yeah.
Basically, it doesn't necessarily mean that. So what I think it happened is she works her way up the, shall we say, political ladder with the Horn Scent.
Right.
She then, amongst all of this, because she's deepening her ties and everything, they, along with Mesmer, Godfrey, and Radagon, they are the ones she uses the Horn Scent to conquer the lands between. Then, and this is where the thing comes in, this is where, when she has built up enough power, like you said yourself, she makes her move.
Yeah. You were actually
betrays the
you were
Horn-
actually on the same thought process I was on there, so you were.
She betrays. So no, because this is the thing. Because this is what I was thinking. Because what I'm thinking is, well, what do they mean betrayal? How did she betray them? Because in order to betray someone, they first need to trust you. So you can't betray someone if you don't trust them.
But the thing is, though, it's the way that the Horn Scent see things is they trust you to do your duty, if that makes sense.
Perhaps,
because she is a
Perhaps,
shaman, so in their
yeah.
she is a shaman, so
In
in their
their
head,
eyes, it is her duty to basically
get in the jar.
get in the jar, conjoin, sainthood awaits you. Which again, whatever they meant by sainthood. See, that's another thing. They don't refer. This is what I'm talking about. The horn scent. They don't refer to gods. They refer to sainthood and the heavens, but they don't outright refer to any deities
Yeah,
or any gods. You know.
aye.
So what's interesting about the horn sense culture? And do you want to know something? This actually reminds me of a video that I need to watch. I can't remember the name of the person who did it, but I think this is one of the things that serves Elden Ring's writing. Basically, the thumbnail of this image is Elden Ring. I think this is what it is. Elden Ring, a world of ancient religion, and I don't know. And the title of the video is A World That Isn't Desperate to Explain Itself.
Pretty
And
much.
I think now, and by no means do I think, see, I haven't watched the video, but by no means do I think, and I think again, I really need to watch that video, but that is okay. It's okay for a world not to be desperate to explain itself, because then you have all these little fun mysteries that you can speculate on and that you can have your own thoughts on.
Yeah,
But I also understand what you're saying. Getting back on track, I understand what you're saying. Will the torn scent believe you should do your duty?
yeah,
And so maybe they think, oh well, Marika betrayed them in that way. But they, again, the narration of the story trailer, I realize I'm basing a lot of this off what Leda says in the story trailer, but you'll note she says the seduction
yeah,
and the betrayal.
yeah. There's a lot. Like I says, like our opinions could change in the next week once we dig a little bit deeper and think a little bit more on it.
Again, yeah, like as we like to read different varying item descriptions. What I actually like, John, or something, what I actually like a lot though about some of the places is that they've really see. I think because obviously there was just such an overwhelming amount of lore in the base game. There was just so much lore that you could go into, you know. And fair enough. What I actually like about this DLC is that have you not noticed that a lot of the lore is a bit more obscure in
It,
this
it's a
DLC?
lot
Have you
more.
not?
It's a lot more
It's a
obscure.
lot more obscure, because I was thinking, oh, I wonder what these horned warrior guys are called. And literally all about the armor description is they're the keepers of the tower. They're the keepers of the tower. They're the soldiers,
Yeah,
and that's
but
it.
we know that they're
You know,
omen in nature.
we know that they're Omen, or rather, we now know that Misbegotten and Omen are horn scent.
Yeah,
They are descendants of the Crucible. And naturally, now we know why they're called the Misbegotten, why Marika branded them as the Misbegotten and the Horn Scent.
yeah,
Because it's basically what you said at one point. She's basically, Marika has PTSD.
pretty much.
Basically, she has the reason why she has such an animosity towards the Crucible is because of what the Horn Scent did to the shamans. And yeah, people can, you could easily say, well, you know, a market she may have gone a bit overboard in places, but it's also the thing of like, it's like war's an ugly business.
Yeah, big time.
War is an ugly business, and obviously the innocent can always get caught in the crossfire. And but again, it's like it all comes down to the fact that maybe not all horn scent were to blame, but the ruling peerage of the horn scent most certainly to blame,
Yeah,
because there's another area, and I suspect we're probably getting to the end of this
yeah,
discussion.
pretty much.
There's another area I want to refer to, and again, this is its own like topic of discussion. Abyssal Woods. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm
that's
going to
Midra.
say.
That's a rabbit hole. So it is. That's Midra. That's a
No,
rabbit hole.
but no, but I'm referring to the Horn Scent presence and what they did.
Oh yeah, big time. But then I understand why they did
All I'm
it.
going to say is Abyssal Woods. I can understand why they did it, but again, the Amidra and the Abyssal Woods, which by the way is one of my favorite areas in the entire
Oh yeah,
DLC, mainly because of its atmosphere. I've heard a lot of people criticize it because it doesn't really have a lot going on in it, but I think the emptiness of it actually serves to emphasize its atmosphere, because you think of a place the frenzied flame, literally, it destroys life.
It destroys anything
Oh,
it comes in contact with. Like, there's a reason
It
that
doesn't.
place is
It
empty.
doesn't. There's a reason it's empty. You're not gonna find, oh, there's so many frenzied flame themed enemies. No, it's the flame of frenzy, and I think I'm not sure where it says it. I'll have to do more digging. But I've heard people say that the flame of frenzy, it not only destroys the body,
It destroys
it
the soul.
destroys the soul.
It destroys. It's the
which is
spirit.
why-
It's
which
the.
is why
Oh, what the? It's like the spurting frenzied rock or something. It's called. It basically states that it can destroy spirits. Hence the reason why the horn said feared
actually,
it.
let me see. Let me see, because I actually think I picked it up, because obviously recently I thought, yeah, is that the surging frenzied
Yes,
flame?
read the description.
Use FP. Okay, spirit gravestone burned by frenzied flame, craftable item. Uses FP. Yeah, spirits are eternal, and yet frenzied flame melts them away regardless.
Hence the
No
reason-
wonder the horn scent forbid the flames use.
Hence the reason Torrent is terrified to be in the Abyssal Woods, because Torrent.
Yeah, because he's a spectral steed. He is literally a spiritual steed.
Yes.
It's the reason why Torrent is afraid.
Yes.
He's not just afraid. He's shitting himself. He's terrified.
Pretty much, because
of the
you are
Abyssal Woods.
you are in the realm of a frenzied lord, a sufficiently weakened one. Yes.
But a frenzied lord nonetheless.
Exactly. Right. Anyway, we will call it quits here.
Anyway,
we will do
We'll
another
call
one.
it quits there.
And
For anyone who chooses to listen, thank you very much.
agreed.
for,
And if you've got any
giving us
ideas,
your
any
time.
lore comments of any way, shape, or form, if we're wrong, tell us. If we're right, tell us. If you have your own ideas, tell us. And we'll make another one. I'll make sure to give Spud the update so well. So again, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed our little spiel. I'm hoping this podcast doesn't get corrupted. And yes,
Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed is right. And Spud, thank you very much for having me. Even though I'm
Not a worries.
Well,
Not a worries.
as says, whenever it comes to lore, I go to you. Whenever it comes to PvP, I go to Streaks.